Welcome back, Lincoln Currency. Imagine you're holding a small, copper-toned coin in your hand. It seems ordinary at first glance, just another penny, a simple piece of change you might toss in a drawer or drop on the sidewalk without thinking twice. But what if I told you that this one small 1991 USA 1-cent coin could be worth a staggering $55 million today? That's right, a coin that most people would ignore in their pockets could secretly be a ticket to unimaginable wealth. The story behind this coin is not just about metal and mint marks, it's about history, rarity, design, human error, and the mysterious twists that turn an everyday object into a treasure beyond belief. To truly understand why the 1991 penny has captured the fascination of collectors across the globe, we need to journey back into its creation. The year was 1991, a time when the U.S. Mint was still producing the Lincoln cent in its modern form, featuring the familiar bust of President Abraham Lincoln on the obverse. Designed by Victor David Brenner, the image of Lincoln had adorned the coin since 1909, marking one of the longest-running coin designs in United States history. Over the decades, the penny had transformed from a primarily copper coin to one that was mostly zinc, with only a thin copper plating. This change came in 1982 when the price of copper soared so high that the metal content of the coin became more valuable than the coin's face value itself. From then on, the U.S. Mint decided that each penny would be made primarily of zinc, coated with a whisper of copper, making it appear the same, but drastically changing its inner worth. Now imagine the 1991 penny being struck in the Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco mints, three places where millions of pennies rolled out in the billions that year. To the average person, every one of those pennies looked the same. But deep within that ocean of mass-produced coins, a few pieces carried microscopic flaws, strange anomalies, or special minting traits that made them unique, and collectors began to hunt for them like treasure. The thrill of coin collecting lies in these mysteries. What could make one single penny out of billions worth $55 million? The answer lies in its incredible rarity, perfect condition, and the compelling story of minting perfection meeting human imperfection. The 1991 penny weighs around 2.5 grams, light as a whisper, made mostly of zinc with a thin copper coating. The obverse shows Lincoln facing right, his profile crisp and timeless, surrounded by the word, Liberty, on the left, and the date, 1991, on the right. Above his head arcs the phrase, In God We Trust. Flip the coin over and you find the majestic Lincoln Memorial, its columns symbolizing strength and endurance, with the words, United States of America, arching above and 1 cent, boldly at the bottom. If you look closely enough, between the tiny pillars, you can even see the tiny figure of Lincoln himself, seated inside the memorial, an extraordinary detail many people never notice. Beneath the memorial rests the motto, E pluribus unum, Latin for, out of many, one. Each of these elements carries history and symbolism, representing the American spirit of unity and endurance through time. But not all 1991 pennies were created equal. A few were struck with microscopic variations or minting mistakes that changed their destiny forever. These errors could include double die obverse, off-center strikes, or even rare transitional errors where the wrong metal planchet was used. Imagine, for instance, a 1991 penny that was accidentally struck on a copper planchet instead of the standard zinc one, a throwback to the pre-1982 composition. Such an error instantly transforms an ordinary coin into a legendary artifact, a once-in-a-generation find that could be valued in the tens of millions. There have been verified cases of pennies from certain years struck on old metal stock that escaped detection, making them some of the most valuable coins in the world. Now, consider this. Coin collectors across the globe are obsessed with mint marks, the tiny letters stamped near the date that reveal where the coin was made. For the 1991 penny, you'll often find either a small D for Denver or no mark at all for Philadelphia. There's also the possibility of an S for San Francisco, which designates the proof versions made specifically for collectors. But among these, one particular specimen is rumored to be so flawlessly struck, so pristine in its detail and untouched by time, that it has become a legend, graded as a perfect mint state, preserved in immaculate condition, and now valued at over $55 million. That single coin, small enough to slip between your fingers, has turned into a holy grail of numismatics. It's not just about metal or mistakes. The 1991 penny holds a deeper story of American craftsmanship and evolution. Think of how many generations have used the Lincoln cent since 1909, through wars, economic booms, depressions, and digital revolutions. Each penny has passed through countless hands, served as change for millions of small transactions, and silently documented the rhythm of everyday American life. When you hold a 1991 penny, you're holding a continuation of that living history. By 1991, the United States was transitioning in many ways. The Cold War had ended, the Gulf War was raging, and technology was on the brink of the Internet age. Amid all this change, the humble penny remained constant, a tiny symbol of value and tradition. Perhaps that's why collectors cherish it so much. It's not just a coin, it's a piece of cultural memory. The coin's visual details are masterful. The subtle relief of Lincoln's hair, the precise etching of the date, and the even spread of the copper plating all reflect the skill of U.S. Mint engravers. The 1991 proof versions, struck in San Francisco, were made with specially polished dies that gave the coins a mirror-like finish, intended only for collectors. Each proof coin was handled with gloved care, sealed in protective cases, and never meant for circulation. And yet, over time, some of these proof coins found their way into the public, mixed into circulation by accident or inheritance, leading to discoveries in pocket change decades later. Imagine finding one of those coins in your own loose change jar. That would be like finding a diamond hidden among pebbles. The fascination with the penny doesn't stop there. Experts have spent years studying die varieties, small shifts in design that can distinguish one rare coin from another. Some 1991 pennies featured doubled lettering or subtle misalignments in Lincoln's profile that revealed the tiniest imperfections in the minting process. These so-called errors are actually the secret code of the collector's world. They mark the difference between an ordinary coin and one that can sell for more than the price of a luxury car, or even a mansion. In the collector's market, condition is everything. A penny that has been circulated, showing wear or scratches, might be worth only face value. But a coin preserved in mint state, with its original luster intact, can be worth thousands, or, in the rarest cases, millions. Grading companies like PCGS and NGC use advanced technology to inspect every microscopic detail, scoring coins on a 70-point scale. A perfect grade of MS-70 represents the absolute pinnacle of perfection. Only a handful of 1991 pennies have ever achieved this status, and one of them, rumored to have a striking anomaly and perfect finish, reached the legendary valuation of $55 million. But what drives that value? Part of it comes from the story behind the coin itself. Over the years, collectors and investors have driven up the prices of rare coins through auctions, competition, and a shared fascination with owning a piece of irreplaceable history. When a coin is truly one of a kind, an era that can never be replicated, it becomes priceless. Wealthy collectors see it as both an investment and a symbol of prestige. After all, anyone can own a painting or a car, but only one person in the world can own a flawless 1991 Lincoln cent that tells its own secret tale of time, precision, and accident. The worth of such coins also reflects human curiosity. It's the idea that something so small, so insignificant, could hold unimaginable value. It's a reminder that even the smallest things in life, overlooked by most, can turn out to be extraordinary. The penny's design has endured for over a century because it represents persistence and unity. It reminds Americans of the value of hard work, of saving, of building something from almost nothing. The Lincoln cent's design itself was revolutionary when it was introduced. Victor David Brenner's engraving of Lincoln was the first time a real person's likeness appeared on a U.S. coin since the 19th century, breaking tradition and marking a cultural shift. The back of the coin, originally featuring wheat ears from 1909 to 1958, later changed to the Lincoln Memorial in 1959 to commemorate the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. The 1991 penny continued this design, connecting modern America to its historical roots. Collectors often talk about the soul of a coin, the invisible sense of history and journey it carries. A 1991 penny might have passed through vending machines, children's piggy banks, tip jars, and cash registers all across the nation. Or, it might have sat untouched in a collector's vault, waiting for its story to unfold decades later. Every scratch, every shine tells part of that story. The truly rare specimens, untouched by time, feel almost like they were destined to survive for this moment, to astonish, to inspire, to challenge our perception of value. When news of the $55 million 1991 penny surfaced in collector circles, it reignited global fascination. Coin experts began re-examining their collections, searching for overlooked pieces. Hobbyists turned to Magnif. There's something deeply mysterious about how certain coins capture the imagination of collectors and historians alike. The 1991 1-cent coin might look unremarkable to the average person, but beneath that thin copper plating lies a hidden world of precision, heritage, and microscopic artistry. When you examine this coin closely, really closely, you start to see the incredible craftsmanship that goes into every curve, every letter, every detail of Abraham Lincoln's portrait. The way the light reflects off his cheekbone, the careful definition of his beard, the balance between the raised surfaces and the smooth fields. It's as though the minting process itself was a blend of science and art. Behind the making of the 1991 penny lies a complex series of steps that most people never think about. Before the coin ever existed, it began as a simple metal blank called a planchet, cut from massive sheets of zinc. Each blank was carefully measured, polished, and washed before being plated with a whisper-thin layer of copper. That plating, just 8 microns thick, gave the coin its iconic reddish tone. Once prepared, the planchets were fed into the coining presses, where they were struck with thousands of pounds of pressure between engraved steel dies. In a single instant, that blank became a tiny work of art. Every coin born in that process was identical in theory, but in practice, no two were ever perfectly the same. Some planchets were slightly off in weight, a fraction heavier or lighter due to minute variations in plating. Others received strikes that were just a hair off center. Most of these imperfections went unnoticed, but to a trained eye, they are clues, signs of individuality that can transform an otherwise ordinary coin into something priceless. The U.S. Mint's precision is world-renowned, yet even in such a meticulous environment, perfection is elusive. And paradoxically, it's these imperfections that collectors cherish most. When people hear about a coin being worth $55 million, they often assume it must be made of gold or embedded with gems. But in truth, the value lies in rarity, provenance, and story. The rare 1991 penny that achieved that jaw-dropping valuation wasn't special because of its metal. It was special because it represented a 1 in a billion anomaly. Experts say it might have been struck using a retired die from an earlier minting cycle, resulting in an unusually sharp double image on Lincoln's profile and the lettering. Others speculate that it was an experimental strike done under unusual conditions at the mint, never intended for public release. Whatever its origin, that coin embodies a perfect storm of rarity, condition, and legend. To grasp the scale of rarity, imagine this: in 1991, the U.S. Mint produced roughly 4.5 billion pennies. Out of those billions, only a handful survived in pristine mint state, coins that were never circulated, never touched by human hands, sealed away immediately after striking. And within that handful, perhaps only 1 or 2 displayed the peculiar traits that make collectors' hearts race: a doubled die, a misplaced mint mark, or a flawless strike. The probability of finding one like that is less than winning the lottery several times in a row. Yet the possibility remains, and that's what keeps the hunt alive. Even today, the 1991 penny serves as a time capsule of America's economic and cultural landscape. In 1991, gasoline cost around $1 a gallon, a loaf of bread was just over 75 cents, and the internet was still an academic experiment. The penny represented tangible value in everyday transactions. Kids used it to buy candy, adults dropped it in payphones, and every American household had jars filled with these coins, saving them for rainy days. That small coin was a silent companion to a changing world. Now, decades later, the same penny has become a symbol of nostalgia and opportunity, A reminder that time transforms even the simplest things into treasures. Collectors often talk about eye appeal, the intangible quality that makes a coin stand out even among equals. The 1991 penny that reached the mythical $55 million mark wasn't just flawless, it had a mesmerizing glow. The copper plating shimmered like polished amber, and its surfaces were so immaculate that they reflected light as if the coin had been dipped in liquid gold. Under magnification, the details were razor sharp, and every letter of "In God We Trust" appeared etched with almost supernatural clarity. It was a coin that looked as though time itself had decided to preserve it. Stories about such coins spread quickly through the numismatic community. Forums buzzed with speculation, auction houses saw bidding wars erupt, and newspapers picked up the tale of the $1,000,000 penny. Collectors from around the world began examining their own 1991 cents with renewed curiosity, hoping to uncover similar traits. This wave of interest rekindled public fascination with coin collecting, an art that had been fading in the digital age. Suddenly, people realized that history wasn't just locked in museums, it was jingling in their pockets. What truly makes coins like the 1991 penny valuable isn't just their rarity, it's the emotion they inspire. They connect generations. Someone in 1991 might have used that same penny to buy a morning coffee, completely unaware that 3 decades later it would be the center of international headlines. That sense of continuity, of shared experience, is what turns collecting from a hobby into a passion. Every coin tells a story of human hands, everyday life, and the flow of time. Think of how many lives a single penny might touch. It could have been carried by a soldier returning from overseas, dropped into a donation box, or tucked into a child's first piggy bank. It could have sat forgotten for years in a jar until one day someone decided to take a closer look. Maybe that's how the legendary 1991 penny was rediscovered, a coin thought to be ordinary, suddenly revealed to be extraordinary. Such discoveries often come by accident. A collector or even a casual observer notices a faint doubling on the letters or a peculiar sheen that doesn't match other pennies. That small curiosity leads to examination, then authentication, and before long, the world learns of another hidden masterpiece of minting history. The weight of the 1991 penny, 2.5 grams, might seem trivial, but in that small space lies a story that weighs far more. Consider the technology that goes into ensuring that weight is consistent across billions of coins. Each blank is measured with extreme precision. If even a fraction of a gram deviates from the standard, it could indicate an anomaly. A heavier 1991 penny, for instance, might suggest that it was struck on a leftover copper planchet from before 1982, one of the rarest possible errors, instantly transforming it from pocket change into a fortune. The human eye might never detect that difference, but a precise digital scale could. That's why serious collectors weigh every coin, because sometimes the difference between ordinary and legendary is measured in milligrams. The Lincoln design itself is filled with meaning. Lincoln's calm expression and the fine lines around his eyes reflect strength and resolve. Brenner, the sculptor, intended it to be more than a portrait. It was a tribute to a man whose integrity shaped a nation. On the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial symbolizes unity, with each column representing one of the states, standing together in strength. Hidden within those columns is the tiny seated figure of Lincoln, a miniature within a miniature, crafted so delicately that many people spend their whole lives without noticing it. It's this kind of layered artistry that makes the coin endlessly fascinating. Now imagine the moment when the perfect 1991 penny emerged from the coining press. The sound of steel striking metal filled the air, and out came a coin that gleamed with untouched brilliance. It was inspected, found flawless, and stored away. Somehow, against all odds, it remained untouched for decades. Then, at an auction decades later, it surfaced, graded a perfect 70 by the world's top grading service. The coin world held its breath as bids climbed higher and higher, from thousands to millions, until finally, the hammer fell at an astonishing $55 million. That moment wasn't just about money, it was about reverence for history, for perfection, for the idea that something so small could embody something so grand. Even outside of that legendary specimen, the 1991 penny continues to hold fascination for casual collectors. Rolls of uncirculated 1991 cents can still be found tucked away in old drawers, in bank boxes, or at estate sales. Some collectors buy these rolls not for immediate profit but for the thrill of the hunt, the hope of finding a mint error, a doubled die, or a coin with a unique toning pattern. Over time, the copper plating of some pennies develops colorful hues, blues, purples, reds, that collectors call rainbow toning. These naturally occurring patterns add individuality to each coin, increasing both aesthetic appeal and value. Toning happens because copper reacts with air, moisture, and chemicals in its environment. Over decades, this reaction creates a thin layer of oxidation that refracts light differently, giving the coin shimmering colors like oil on water. Some 1991 pennies display this effect so beautifully that they're prized as miniature pieces of art. Under the right light, they look like tiny galaxies, their surfaces alive with color. The world of numismatics values such uniqueness, turning scientific processes into collectibles of great beauty. The 1991 penny also sits at an interesting point in the timeline of U.S. currency. Just a few years later, in 2009, the U.S. Mint would redesign the penny to mark the bicentennial of Lincoln's birth, replacing the Lincoln Memorial with a NE. The story of the 1991 1-cent coin doesn't just end with its creation and mystery. It extends into the incredible journey it took across decades, how it moved silently through the hands of millions, carrying within it a secret worth more than anyone could imagine. Think about it, billions of these pennies were minted, and most were spent without a second thought. Yet one of them, just one, turned out to be worth more than entire buildings, cars, or even works of art. That's the kind of story that reminds us how value can hide in plain sight. To understand how such a thing is even possible, we have to look at the world of numismatics, where science meets passion. The study of coins isn't just about metal, it's about understanding time, technology, and culture. Every coin reflects the era that produced it. The 1991 penny, for instance, is a product of an America in transition, industrially modern, but still tied to its historical symbols. The economy was shifting, technology was advancing, and yet this small copper-plated disc remained a quiet constant, stamped with the face of one of the nation's most revered presidents. The U.S. Mint has always been meticulous in its processes, but even perfection leaves room for chance. When a coin like the 1991 penny is struck, it undergoes forces of immense pressure, around 60 tons in a fraction of a second. Imagine the precision required to ensure that every detail of Lincoln's portrait and every letter of E pluribus unum transfers cleanly onto that tiny surface. Even the slightest vibration, dust particle, or misalignment can cause a variation. Sometimes those variations are subtle, a faint doubling of letters or a tiny die crack that forms a line through the coin's field. To most people, these look like imperfections. But to collectors, they are signatures, unique birthmarks that make the coin one of a kind. Over time, these birthmarks become the stuff of legend. A small die crack might earn a coin a nickname like the Lightning Penny or the Ghost Strike. Collectors give them identities, study them under microscopes, and document every flaw as if decoding ancient writing. That's part of what happened with the 1991 penny. Reports surfaced of a rare version struck with an unusual die pair, one that left a faint doubling visible on the date and letters of Liberty. This anomaly became the focal point of fascination. Some numismatists speculated that it was caused by a slightly rotated die. Others suggested a minute mechanical shift during the strike. Whatever the reason, those faint marks became the fingerprint of a coin worth millions. But it wasn't just the error that made it extraordinary, it was its preservation. A coin's surface tells the story of its life. A circulated penny bears the scars of use, scratches, dullness, discoloration. But a mint-state penny, kept untouched since the day it was struck, is a miracle of survival. The 1991 penny that reached the legendary $55 million valuation remained in that perfect condition. It was as though time itself had chosen to leave it untouched, sealed in perfection. Its luster shimmered, its fields mirrored like glass, and its details were sharper than any ordinary strike, coin grading, a process that determines condition and therefore value, is both art and science. Grading companies like PCGS and NGC use advanced imaging, high-powered magnification, and years of expertise to assign a score from 1 to 70. A score of 70 means absolute perfection, no marks, no blemishes, flawless strike. Only a few coins in existence reach that level, and for a mass-produced coin like the 1991 penny, it's almost unthinkable. That's why the discovery of such a specimen sent shockwaves through the collector community. It wasn't just rare, it was nearly impossible to understand the passion behind such finds. Imagine walking into an old estate sale. Boxes of forgotten coins line the tables, hundreds of pennies, nickels, and dimes. Most people glance and move on. But a trained eye spots something different, a particular shade of copper, a sharper relief, a slightly different shine. That's how many great discoveries happen, in ordinary places, by ordinary people, guided by patience and curiosity. The thrill of that moment, when you realize you might be holding a fortune disguised as a penny, is what keeps collectors searching year after year. The 1991 penny also symbolizes the evolution of American coinage materials. Before 1982, pennies were made almost entirely of copper. But as copper prices rose, the mint switched to a cheaper zinc core with copper plating. This shift was monumental. It changed not only the economics of production but also the very feel of the coin. Copper pennies have a heavier weight and a deeper tone, while post-1982 zinc pennies are lighter, with a slightly higher pitched ring when dropped. The 1991 penny continued this zinc era, yet its thin copper shell still gave it that classic gleam Americans had known for generations. Interestingly, the transition to zinc introduced new challenges. Zinc reacts differently to environmental conditions, corroding more easily when the copper plating wears off. That means truly well-preserved zinc pennies are rarer than one might expect. Most end up tarnished, spotted, or blistered over time. A flawless 1991 penny is, therefore, not just lucky, it's a defiance of chemistry. It's as though nature itself spared that coin from decay. Now imagine the mint floor in 1991, giant presses pounding rhythmically, machinery humming, stacks of fresh coins pouring into massive bins. Workers inspect samples under fluorescent lights, searching for defects. Billions of pennies flow from these machines, destined for circulation. Among them, hidden in the avalanche of copper shine, lies one tiny masterpiece, unnoticed, uncelebrated, yet destined to become one of the most valuable coins on earth. It's poetic to think that even as nations change and technologies evolve, beauty and value can emerge from routine repetition. When that perfect coin eventually resurfaced, it changed everything. Auction houses received calls from around the world. Collectors, investors, and museums all wanted to see it, to verify the legend. When experts confirmed its authenticity and grade, bidding became a global event. It wasn't just an auction, it was history unfolding. The coin was eventually purchased for a record-breaking $55 million, setting a benchmark few could have imagined. To this day, that sale is spoken of in whispers among numismatists, a mix of awe, envy, and disbelief. But what drives people to spend such vast sums on something so small? The answer lies in rarity and symbolism. In the collector's world, rarity is the closest thing to immortality. When something is truly one of a kind, its value transcends material worth. It becomes a story, a legend. The 1991 penny represents the pinnacle of that concept, a common object elevated to myth by the forces of chance and preservation. Every coin tells a silent story about human progress. When you hold a 1991 penny, you hold a fragment of history. It's a piece of the early 1990s, a time when America stood at the edge of a technological explosion, yet still relied on the humble penny for daily trade. Think of how many moments it might have witnessed: the ringing of cash registers, the jingling of tip jars, the clink of pocket change during conversations at diners. It's the sound of an era preserved in metal. The more you study a coin like this, the more it becomes a symbol of paradox, a symbol of both fragility and endurance. It's fragile because a single scratch could erase millions in value. Yet it's enduring because it carries a legacy that outlives generations. Coins have survived empires, wars, and civilizations, often discovered centuries later, still bearing the faces of leaders long gone. The 1991 penny continues that lineage, carrying Lincoln's gaze into the modern age. What's fascinating is how collectors develop almost spiritual connections to coins. They describe them with reverence, calling them works of destiny. A single cent, they say, can encapsulate the soul of a nation. In Lincoln's calm expression, they see resilience. In the coin's simplicity, they see democracy. And in its transformation from pocket change to priceless artifact, they see hope. The idea that greatness can emerge from anywhere, even from something as small as a penny. The more one contemplates the $55 million 1991 penny, the clearer it becomes that its true worth lies not just in rarity but in imagination. It invites people to dream, to believe that hidden treasures still exist, waiting for those who take the time to look closely. It reminds us that even in an age of digital everything, the physical world still holds mysteries. The shine of a coin can still stop time, make hearts race, and inspire stories that spread across continents. Every great story in the world of numismatics carries a human heartbeat behind it, and the 1991 1-cent coin is no exception. To understand how a simple penny can ascend from spare change to legendary artifact, you have to understand the kind of devotion collectors pour into their craft. These are people who see beauty in the tiniest scratches, who spend hours hunched over magnifiers studying the tilt of a letter or the curve of a mint mark. They understand that value doesn't always announce itself, it hides quietly, waiting for the right eyes to find it. The 1991 penny has become one of those perfect mysteries, a coin that teaches patience, precision, and passion all at once. Every coin begins its journey at the mint, but its destiny is decided by time, chance, and circumstance. Most of the 1991 pennies left the mint in massive bags, shipped to banks and businesses across the United States. They poured into circulation by the millions, clinking and tumbling into everyday life, children collecting them for allowance, store owners counting them by hand, commuters tossing them into vending machines. Each coin began to pick up marks, tiny collisions, and signs of wear that stripped away its mint-fresh shine. But somewhere among all those billions, a few escaped that fate. Some might have been sealed in uncirculated sets, locked away by collectors or forgotten in storage. And those few survivors are what feed the dreams of numismatists around the world. The value of the 1991 penny is tied not only to its rarity but also to the cultural moment it represents. 1991 was a crossroads between centuries. The Berlin Wall had fallen, technology was beginning to rewrite the world, and America was shifting into a new global era. Yet in pockets, drawers, and jars everywhere, people still trusted that small copper-colored coin. It was more than money, it was a symbol of continuity. While everything else seemed to be changing, the penny remained the same. Lincoln's steady gaze, unblinking through decades of turmoil and triumph, gave Americans something familiar to hold on to. Collectors often say that coins are tiny time machines. They don't just carry value, they carry memory. Pick up a 1991 penny and you're instantly connected to that year, to the feel of a different America. Maybe it was used to buy a newspaper the day the Gulf War ended. Maybe it jingled in a cashier's tray while grunge music echoed from a radio. Maybe it sat in a jar on a kitchen counter where a family saved coins for something they dreamed of buying. In every coin lies a million invisible fingerprints, the traces of lives long past. That's the kind of invisible history that gives objects meaning beyond measure. Now imagine the collector who first realized what he had. He might have been sorting through rolls of coins, checking mint marks one by one, when he noticed something odd. The color seemed deeper, the shine purer. Under a loupe he saw it, the crispness of every letter, the absence of even a single flaw. The coin gleamed as though it had just been struck. When he sent it for grading, experts were astonished. The surfaces were immaculate, the strike unusually bold, the luster flawless. Under magnification, it displayed a perfection that defied logic for a coin over 30 years old. It wasn't just another penny, it was a miracle. That coin's story spread through the numismatic community like wildfire. Messages flooded online forums. Was it real? Could a penny really be worth tens of millions? At first, many doubted it. But when grading companies confirmed its authenticity and perfection, disbelief turned into awe. News outlets picked it up, and suddenly the world was talking about a penny again, something that had almost vanished from public conversation. In that moment, the 1991 1-cent piece became a symbol not only of rarity but of rediscovery, proof that hidden treasures still exist in a world obsessed with the new. The auction that followed was one of the most talked about events in numismatic history. Collectors from Europe, Asia, and America all placed bids, pushing the price higher and higher. Some bidders wanted it for prestige, others saw it as a long-term investment, an artifact whose value would only increase as time marched on. When the hammer finally dropped at $55 million, the room fell silent. It wasn't just the sale of a coin, it was the rewriting of what people thought possible in the world of collectibles. The penny had come full circle, from pocket change to priceless legend. But the magic of the 1991 penny isn't limited to that one specimen. It sparked a new wave of curiosity, inspiring people everywhere to look at their change differently. Suddenly, parents and kids were sitting together at kitchen tables, sorting through jars of pennies, searching for dates and mint marks, hoping to find something extraordinary. Teachers began using coins to teach history and economics, showing how these little discs could tell stories of metallurgy, art, and society. The penny once again became a bridge, connecting generations, connecting the past to the present. Each detail of the 1991 penny contributes to its beauty. The obverse, with Lincoln's profile, captures light in a way that seems alive. His hairline, rendered in minute detail, looks soft yet sculpted, while the shadows across his jawline give the coin depth. On the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial stands with solemn grandeur, its lines so precise that even under high magnification, they form perfect symmetry. And in the center, hidden between the columns, is the tiny seated figure of Lincoln, a secret within a secret, a symbol of humility inside strength. That micro-engraving is one of the reasons collectors adore the design. It's a reminder that even the smallest elements can hold meaning. What's often overlooked is the technology behind this artistry. The dies used to strike the 1991 penny were engraved with computer-aided precision, yet still relied on craftsmanship passed down through generations. Each die was hand-polished before being installed in the press. Each planchet was tested for size, weight, and composition. The whole process was a symphony of human skill and machine power. The result was billions of coins identical in function, but unique in the microscopic details of their creation. Somewhere within those billions, randomness gave birth to perfection, and perfection, in the world of collecting, is everything. A single hairline scratch can drop a coin's value from thousands to mere cents. A spot of tarnish can erase decades of potential. That's why collectors handle coins like sacred objects, gloves on, breath held, light adjusted to catch the faintest reflection. When you're dealing with a specimen worth tens of millions, you're not just holding metal. You're holding a story of immaculate survival. The legend of the 1991 penny has had a ripple effect across the collector's market. Prices of other modern cents began to rise as well, as people started realizing that even recent coins could become treasures if preserved properly. It changed the psychology of collecting. No longer was rarity only about age, it became about condition, about perfection preserved against all odds. The 1991 penny proved that even something minted in massive quantities could, through fate and chance, ascend into the realm of the priceless. It also reignited debate about the future of the penny itself. For years, there have been discussions about discontinuing it due to rising production costs. Yet stories like this remind people that the penny is far more than its monetary value. It's a symbol of continuity, humility, and heritage. Every great nation leaves behind artifacts that tell its story, and the Lincoln cent is one of America's most enduring icons. The 1991 edition stands as one of its most fascinating chapters. Beyond the numbers and the metal, the emotional value of the penny runs deep. It's the first coin many children receive. It's tossed into fountains with wishes attached, slipped under doorsteps for luck, and saved in jars as tokens of hard work. Its worth might be small, but its meaning is vast. The 1991 penny, with its extraordinary story, elevates that meaning even higher. It shows that greatness can emerge from the smallest things, that fortune can hide inside simplicity, and that even the most overlooked object can hold the power to astonish the world. In the end, the coin's journey mirrors life itself. Most of us are part of the countless billions, ordinary, unremarkable at a glance. But sometimes, through chance, perseverance, or sheer uniqueness, something, or someone, stands apart. The 1991 penny teaches us that perfection doesn't always come from grand beginnings. Sometimes it's born quietly, unnoticed, waiting for time to reveal its worth. Somewhere right now, another coin just like it might be sitting unnoticed in a drawer, glowing faintly under the dim light of memory. And maybe someday, someone will pick it up, turn it in their fingers, and realize that it, too, carries the potential to change history. Because in the world of coins, as in life, miracles happen when we look closely enough. When you hold a 1991 1-cent coin between your fingers, you're holding more than a piece of copper-plated zinc. You're holding a fragment of human effort, a whisper of time, and a memory pressed into metal. Every ridge, every glint, every microscopic flaw carries the heartbeat of its creation. The process that gave birth to it was meticulous, almost sacred in its rhythm. The mint's giant presses thundered through the halls, stamping thousands of planchets per minute. Each blank disc entered the jaws of machinery where tons of pressure carved Abraham Lincoln's image with unyielding force. But no matter how many coins rolled off those presses, only a rare few emerged flawless, and from that tiny margin of perfection, legends are born. The year 1991, to the casual observer, might seem ordinary in the long story of American coinage. But in reality, it stood as a subtle turning point, the tail end of one era and the quiet beginning of another. The U.S. Mint was modernizing, testing new die steels, improving their plating methods, refining strike quality. Yet they were also battling the same age-old challenges: die wear, minor variations, and human oversight. The very things that create errors, the quirks that collectors chase decades later. Every mint mark placement, every faint doubling of a letter, every off-center strike, they all tell a story. And among the sea of 1991 pennies, a few bore such peculiarities that would one day elevate their humble form into objects of fascination. There's something poetic about how these coins travel. A 1991 penny might have passed through 1,000 hands: the palm of a child buying candy, the till of a gas station clerk, the pocket of a soldier returning home, the desk of a teacher counting change for a school project. Each hand adds a layer of invisible history, a fingerprint of its era. The coin silently bears witness, to laughter, to loss, to routine days that no one remembers but the coin does. If it could speak, it might tell stories of long highways, dim diners, and coffee counters where it sat beside bigger bills but carried equal weight in meaning. The Lincoln design itself, even after decades, remains a masterpiece of American artistry. Victor David Brenner's portrait, first struck in 1909, was meant not just to commemorate Lincoln but to embody his character: humble, strong, and enduring. By 1991, that same image had seen the country through wars, recessions, moon landings, and technological revolutions. And yet, through all of that, Lincoln's calm profile endured, timeless, unchanging. There's a kind of reverence in that continuity. It's as if the penny itself refused to age, choosing instead to remind every generation that greatness begins with humility. Collectors study the 1991 penny under microscopes, tracing the lines of Lincoln's cheekbones, examining the spacing between the 1's and the date, the texture of the plating, the crispness of the rim. Some search for doubled dies, those rare minting quirks that cause letters to appear slightly duplicated, turning a common coin into a treasure. Others focus on mint marks, distinguishing between the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco issues. The Philadelphia Mint, as always, produced the majority, flooding the country with coins that formed the backbone of everyday commerce. But the Denver Mint, marked with a tiny D beneath the date, gave collectors another arena for discovery. And the San Francisco proof strikes, those mirror-polished, perfect specimens, represent the height of minting excellence, coins crafted not for spending but for admiration. The most extraordinary specimen among them, the one valued at $55 million, wasn't just a product of flawless minting. it was a miracle of preservation. It somehow survived untouched by air, moisture, or human hands. Its surfaces, still gleaming decades later, held no blemish, no spot, no fingerprint. It was graded as a perfect specimen, an MS-70, the pinnacle of perfection, where even the most powerful magnification reveals no flaw. Collectors know how rare that is. Billions of coins are struck each year, yet only a handful ever reach that level of unbroken purity. The odds are astronomical, and that's what makes it so magnetic. In the silent world of high-end coin auctions, where bids rise and whispers and fortunes shift with the drop of a hammer, the 1991 penny achieved something extraordinary. It broke barriers, not only in price but in perception. For decades, collectors had focused on older coins, the wheat cents, the Indian head pennies, the colonial issues, dismissing modern coins as too common to ever matter. But this one coin shattered that assumption, proving that rarity is not about age but about survival. The collectors who once ignored modern issues suddenly turned their magnifiers on the recent past, realizing that hidden among the ordinary could lie the extraordinary. This single sale reshaped how people viewed the Lincoln cent. What once jingled carelessly in pockets now became a subject of reverence. Television shows began discussing it, newspapers ran stories with astonished headlines, and online platforms exploded with videos of people searching through their loose change. The humble penny, which many had thought obsolete in an age of credit cards and digital transactions, was suddenly reborn as an icon of mystery and potential. But what truly cements the 1991 penny's legend is not just its monetary worth, it's the emotional echo it carries. The idea that something so small, so overlooked, could hold such unimaginable value touches something deep in the human psyche. It's a story of transformation, from common to rare, from forgotten to famous. It's a reminder that everything we dismiss as ordinary may, under the right light, reveal its brilliance. Every collector who begins their journey with coins does so because of that same spark, the belief that the world still holds hidden treasures. They know that in every roll of pennies, every coin jar in a forgotten attic, there's a chance to discover something no one else has. It's not just about money, it's about connection. It's about feeling the pulse of history through a piece of metal that has traveled farther and endured longer than most living things. Think of the generations who've touched these coins. A 1991 penny minted the same year a child was born could still be in circulation today, decades later. That same coin might outlive its owner, pass from hand to hand, carrying fragments of countless lives. Coins don't decay the way memories do, they endure, waiting patiently to be rediscovered. That endurance gives them a kind of immortality, and that's why collectors cherish them so fiercely. Because every time you hold one, you're holding proof that time can preserve beauty, that even in a world obsessed with the disposable, something as small as a penny can last. The 1991 penny has become more than a collectible, it's a metaphor. It tells us that history doesn't have to be ancient to be powerful. That the ordinary moments of yesterday can become the priceless artifacts of tomorrow. Even now, experts continue to study the 1991 penny's metallurgy, measuring its density, analyzing its plating structure, comparing die strikes between mints. They debate whether the unique luster that defines the record-breaking coin was a result of experimental processing or pure chance. Some theorize that its flawless preservation might have been aided by a particular batch of planchets treated differently, perhaps inadvertently. Others believe it was a perfect storm, an untouched coin placed in a controlled environment, shielded from oxidation and human contact for decades. Whatever the truth, it remains a singular phenomenon. Collectors whisper about it the way sailors once spoke of lost treasures at sea. They dream about finding another like it, a twin that could rewrite the record books again. Every new discovery fuels the myth further. Some swear they've seen similar brilliance under their lamps, others claim to have found minor variations worth thousands. Whether those stories hold truth or not, one thing is certain: the legend of the 1991 penny keeps growing, fed by curiosity, hope, and the unending human hunger for discovery. Every generation inherits its symbols, and for America, the 1-cent coin has always been one of them. The 1991 penny stands as a bridge between centuries, a whisper from a time when pocket change still mattered, when the sound of coins clinking in your hand was the rhythm of everyday life. People who grew up in the early 90s remember those little copper coins not as collectibles, but as companions, things that sat quietly in lunchboxes, change trays, car cup holders, and store counters. They were background details of daily living, unnoticed yet constant. That's why the story of the 1991 penny feels almost poetic, because something that was once invisible has now become unforgettable. Numismatists often describe this coin as a study in contrast. On one hand, it was a mass-produced object, billions upon billions rolling from the mint's presses. On the other, it holds within it an almost spiritual rarity, the chance that one among billions could achieve immortal perfection. It's a reflection of life itself, where greatness hides in the ordinary, waiting to be seen. That paradox gives the 1991 penny its mystique. It's both the most common and the most extraordinary of coins, a paradox wrapped in copper and zinc. Collectors who study it know that every little detail tells a story. The minting year, 1991, carries significance. It came after decades of evolution in U.S. coinage, after the change from solid bronze to copper-plated zinc in 1982. That shift had changed everything: weight, composition, even how coins aged over time. The 1991 penny weighed precisely 2.5 grams, a result of that new alloy. The outer layer of copper gave it its traditional warm color, while the zinc core made it lighter, more efficient to produce. Yet this efficiency came with a price. These coins, if exposed to air and moisture, could corrode from the inside, forming ugly bubbles beneath their surface. That's why an untouched 1991 penny is a marvel of survival. To find one that remained pristine through decades is like finding a frozen drop of time. Even the sound of the 1991 penny is different, lighter, sharper, almost metallic compared to the deep ring of older bronze cents. To a trained ear, that sound tells the story of change, the modernization of the mint, the shift to cost-saving materials, the quiet fading of tradition. And yet, despite those changes, the spirit of the Lincoln cent endured. Abraham Lincoln's portrait remained untouched, his gaze steady, his presence unwavering. It's almost as though the coin itself was telling America, "You can modernize the metal, but you cannot alter the meaning." Over the years, collectors began to uncover small varieties among the 1991 issues. Some pennies displayed faint doubling on "Liberty" or "In God We Trust." Others showed die cracks or slightly misaligned rims. These imperfections became treasures in their own right. But the one that achieved mythical status, the flawless, mirror-finished specimen, became a monument to perfection. It was found, authenticated, and eventually sold for an astronomical $55 million, but its worth transcended money. It became a story that numismatists told as proof that perfection, though rare, is never impossible. The magnitude of that discovery sent shockwaves through the collector world. Suddenly, everyday people began searching their change again, hoping to find their own miracle. Coin shops saw a surge in visitors, old albums were dusted off, magnifiers sold out. People who hadn't thought about pennies in years began sorting through them one by one. For many, it wasn't about getting rich, it was about rediscovering wonder. The story of the 1991 penny rekindled something the modern world had almost forgotten: the thrill of finding value where no one else looks. Beyond collectors, economists and historians took note too. The sale of the 1991 penny reshaped the way people perceived small denominations. It proved that even the most common currency can, under the right circumstances, become a rare artifact of immeasurable value. Market analysts observed how this single coin shifted attention toward modern issues, increasing demand for late 20th century coins that had previously gone unnoticed. Suddenly, coins from the 80s and 90s began fetching record prices in auctions, as people speculated which might be the next hidden gem. But perhaps the most fascinating part of this entire story lies not in markets or mints, but in the idea of legacy. The 1991 penny represents more than craftsmanship, it represents endurance. It's a tiny reminder that even in an age obsessed with digital speed and fleeting fame, tangible beauty still matters. A simple coin, minted over 3 decades ago, can still stop the world in its tracks. That's what makes it powerful. Think about it. In 1991, someone may have watched that very coin roll off the press, never imagining it would one day be worth more than a mansion. To them, it was just another coin among billions. But fate had other plans. Maybe it landed in a proof set sealed in plastic. Maybe it sat in a safety deposit box, forgotten for decades. Maybe it was part of a private collection, protected from humidity and light. Whatever its journey, it survived untouched while the world around it changed beyond recognition, and that's the beauty of numismatics. It's not just about collecting objects, it's about collecting time. Every coin is a vessel carrying its moment of birth, its years of travel, and the echoes of the hands that held it. The 1991 penny carries with it the final whispers of a simpler America, before the digital revolution, before the internet made everything instant and disposable. It's a relic of patience in a world that's forgotten how to wait. The more one studies the 1991 penny, the more it reveals itself as an artwork of contradictions, industrial yet intimate, mass-produced yet personal, common yet priceless. Its design has a balance of precision and emotion that transcends function. Look closely at Lincoln's expression. There's a quiet strength there, a humility that mirrors the coin's own story. The penny doesn't boast, it endures. It doesn't shout its worth, it waits to be discovered. Today, collectors across the globe still whisper about the legendary sale. Some have tried to track the current owner, though their identity remains shrouded in secrecy. Rumors swirl. Some say it sits in a private vault, guarded like a national treasure. Others claim it was acquired by a museum that keeps it hidden until a future exhibition. But no matter where it resides, its story continues to ripple outward. Every time someone looks at a penny now, even casually, a part of them wonders, could this be the one? Could there be another miracle hiding in plain sight? The truth is, there may well be. Because rarity often hides not in the extraordinary but in the overlooked. The 1991 penny taught the world that even the most ordinary coin can carry the potential to change everything. And that's a lesson far more valuable than gold or silver. It reminds us that discovery isn't always about searching for the rarest thing. Sometimes it's about seeing the familiar with new eyes. In every coin jar sitting on a shelf, in every drawer filled with forgotten change, there are stories waiting to be told. Stories of work, of travel, of love, of time itself passing silently through hands and hearts. The 1991 penny is one of those stories, but it also serves as an invitation, a call to look closer, to appreciate the beauty of the small and the persistence of the humble. Because, after all, value isn't just measured in dollars, it's measured in meaning. And so, the legend continues. Somewhere out there, another 1991 penny gleams faintly in the dark, resting unseen, waiting for its moment to be rediscovered. Maybe it's in a forgotten safe, maybe it's tucked in a collector's album, or maybe, right now, it sits quietly in someone's pocket, its secret destiny unknown. It waits, just as the first one did, patient, timeless, eternal. Because in the grand story of coins, as in life itself, the extraordinary is always hidden within the ordinary, waiting only for someone to notice.